You know that unicorns do like a rainbow poo with a lot of
Oh,
colors.
yeah. Of course,
So,
it's a
so
rainbow.
when
I forgot.
so when we're
Yeah, yeah.
talking about
Shoot.
when we're talking about unicorns, we are talking about
We're
exactly
talking
that.
sparkling. Yeah, of
Exactly a
course.
sparkling. No, but
Yeah,
so and I'm totally with you. Where and it just goes to show that on the one hand, the roles we've been discussing, a lot of the time they fall on one person. Where you go, oh wow, that's a lot of for him as one person to
yeah.
do. On the other hand, some of the roles that we've been describing are so much in depth that you're saying that's hardly possible to manage that in full with one person.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the BPM 360 podcast. Russell is still quickly changing his glasses. I'm Caspar, your host, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Russell. Russell, besides the new glasses, how are you, mate?
I'm exhausted.
Is it so hard to just change glasses?
No, actually, the thing is, they're exactly the same model. I just realized that the frame is broken. I have, as I said, I have reading specs, and I have a subscription on them. Yeah, so because
Okay. Very good.
the first set of reading glasses were expensive, and it took me a month to destroy them. And then
Yeah.
I went back to the cheaper versions, but then to make sure that I always have never out of stock. You know, it's very good print.
Yeah.
They're never out of stock. That Amazon actually offered a subscription on reading glasses, so they really know their target group, don't they?
Oh, they do.
People
Yeah.
that lose, destroy, scratch, whatever their
Yeah.
glasses
Yeah.
in a certain period of time. So actually, and then over the time, that's something where they could adapt their algorithm. My maturity of wearing glasses has grown. Yeah, so I actually sometimes they last longer than 3 months. So that's why
Yeah.
currently
Yeah.
I've had an overlap with two sets of specs that actually have a full functioning. And just now in this moment, the one just kind of like that dissolved, and
Yeah.
I'm onto the second part. Yeah, so so I have to take this.
Brilliant.
I can take the subscription up to from 3 months to 4 months. No, and then there comes a phase when you have to switch. Let's not get too, but that's the process of maturity and growing accustomed to spectacles.
Yeah. I think I have 3 different pairs of spectacles, so I know all about that. And the reading ones actually come from a store like we call it Kruidvat, but you call it DM or Primark or whatever. They're like €3 a piece because I break them or I lose them 3 times a week. I just keep a bunch of them, but my computer glasses are actually more subscription, and so I'd be very careful with those. But anyway, it's good to have you on the show, even though you're exhausted. And let's have a good conversation. I'm sure that's not going to take you any more energy because you can do that in your sleep. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we have the last role in the BPM roles. You know, the mini series that we started, and they sometimes got interrupted by very interesting guests. Today is the last role that we're going to discuss. So, as you know, last week we did part 2 of the process owner. No, we actually did the BPM practitioner, right? In between. But that's going to be yeah, we recorded that one, Russell, but it hasn't been published yet. So
yes, exactly.
Stay tuned for that. By now, when you hear this one, you heard that one as well. And the last role that we're going to do today is the performance and KPI analyst, aka the process intelligence analyst. So that's today's role, Russell. I'm sure that we can talk a lot about that one as well as we did with the other ones.
So let's kick it off. Let's kick it off again.
Let's kick it off again. Welcome to BPM 360. Oh, not that kickoff. All right. Anyway, what does our friend say about this role? Responsible for the ongoing measurement of process performance, designing KPI frameworks, maintaining dashboards, and turning process data into actionable insights for process owners and leadership. Well, let's start there. Before we go into the character traits and required experience, I think there's a lot to unpack in that sentence alone. So I see here a mix of process performance, KPI frameworks, dashboards, and then actionable insights. I think the last one is the hot topic right now, I would say. So turn insights into into actions, basically, right?
Yeah, because you have like two functions that are mixing up here, and I think it's very interesting to see that somebody has to think more on KPI frameworks. That you need,
Hmm.
like a process architect. You also should think about how do you set up a let's say a baseline of indicators, performance indicators, process or key, whatever you talk about that
Hmm.
later. That are suitable to the actual operations and the strategy of your company. Now, on the other hand, you could say, yeah, but isn't that something completely decoupled from processes, and isn't that something that the controlling department does? And but I think it's interesting when you go into big transformations. You always have everybody says, yeah, we need reports. They said, okay, what do you need a report for? And
Yeah,
sometimes it's just like an export of data, so they have the working list of open items or something like
yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sometimes it's very from a financial perspective, a very high level financial report where you have certain data aggregated, consolidated, and there are a lot of indicators in there that people are actually looking at. So I think that typically is what I would really call something like a report and a dashboard that you're looking at. But on the operative level, it's a lot of the time there is this missing framework of performance indicators, key as well as process performance indicators. That's why I think the role is very interesting from this perspective they put down here,
Hmm.
um, in the sense of from a, let's say, architectural design perspective, how do you actually ensure that to operationalize your strategy, you want processes, okay, but you
Hmm.
also have to set guardrails for how the performance of these and what are the let's say the objectives and the success criteria on a quantitative level, indicator
Hmm.
that you can then break down and said, in order to fulfill the strategy, this is an operational process that I need. And these are the actual success indicators to show if it's more or less striving towards what we need in the context of the strategy. And it's aligned along the chain and the department. So it's not just like one expert in one domain looking at how can I, and then get actionable items out of it. But it is they are talking about this architectural framework around performance indicators, which I think is really valuable.
Hmm.
Now, I would also question: are these roles sufficiently positioned and
Yeah, that's
mandated and even
yeah.
existent in the organizations on a
It's
on a
a
day-to-day level?
that's a very good question, actually. I mean, at the moment that you run a BPM practice, whether that's in project phase or in the running business phase, and we're talking about running business roles now, so let's
Mhm.
assume we're in the running
Yeah, yeah,
business
yeah,
phase.
absolutely. Yeah.
Um, there will always be a requirement or a desire to have some kind of progress reporting. Whether it's a report or a dashboard, I mean, I don't make that difference. It's the same. It's a visualization or an aggregation of information that you have in a repository, and that you need to make digestible for people who need to make decisions based on it. The I very often see this, and I'm wondering on what your experience on that is. I'm very often seeing that this is done from within a COE, where there is somebody who basically just created reports based on requests from the
Mhm.
business, so to
Mhm.
speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, but and then it's an iterative approach where you say, well, give me a specification of what you would like to see. So they give you that, then it's being built. And then you're going to have another set of iterations where they say, well, yeah, can you add this or change that? And then at a certain point in time, you say, yeah, this is cool. Can you provide me this report every week, month, quarter, whatever? But I think that is basically just giving people a fish every period, and you want to try to teach them how to fish. So you want to have something that is easy to use, where you can make your own reports, right? In the end. And if you say that, because that, I think, the self-service topic is a topic that we see with multiple roles, but that would mean that at the moment that make people, you enable people and make them capable of doing self-service, you're going to have a multitude of these roles in your organization.
Yeah, and it takes process management to a different level as well. And
True.
just think about the BPM as we've been, talking about. We're talking a lot about process documentation and about accompanying process, excellent initiatives. Um, Typically, when you start getting down to numbers, you're talking about maybe a dedicated Lean Six Sigma approach where they start measuring data, so they're getting an access to data on the actual performance on the process on that level, or
Mm-hmm.
by then talking about, okay, in which systems do you actually have data that you can use to measure the indicator. And what I think is interesting is coming from a process design. I've been in initiatives where they did, yeah, we wanna get much better in our order to cash, and say, yeah, okay, let's integrate and make this more seamless. And then talking about I said, but you need to measure it. So let's just take, let's say, a standard on time in full, on first time, customer promise, fulfilling customer
Mm-hmm.
promises and all these things. And then you're noticing, and before you can even measure it, or you do measure it, and you notice, oh, this can't be right. This data can't be right. Yeah. And then you go back and says, oh, you know what? To establish this, I have to set up a set of rules. For example, you cannot just change the wish date for delivery after you've delivered the product and then realize that you're 10 days late. So you just change the date in the system and you have an on time in full
Yeah.
first time promise 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you may say that's obvious, but maybe it's not so obvious. And then you have
No,
to go down.
it's.
So you actually,
I've seen this in practice, so that's why I'm laughing.
so what you're doing is you're going back to redesigning the process to be foolproof to a certain extent and be able to provide the data that you need to be able to even measure it.
Yeah.
And that's something I think is interesting in itself, that you could say, to really get down to a detailed level of implementation and also on the IT side. Um, wouldn't it be a 100% necessity to actually be very clear about what your KPIs are, process performance indicators and KPIs are, what level you want to achieve in the context of an initiative, and
Mm-hmm.
and take this along into the detailed design as a key requirement to say, I need to be able to measure this. I need to,
Yeah.
I need to
Yeah.
be able to, and not just perform good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I need to be able to monitor good this process. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something where I think it's interesting to see, where you say, yeah, but that's obvious. If you've got SAP, then that's just out of the box, a standard report. Is it? Is it also from, of course, this example I was saying was an Oracle system.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I realized that I think SAP is like a trace first, and if you don't want to trace something, you have to you have to turn it
Yeah.
off.
Deactivate it.
The
Yeah. Yeah.
default
Yeah.
mode is, I'm gonna log everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oracle seems to be the other way around. You want something logging? Oh, that's a surprise. Oh, we'd have to think about how we can capture this event to make it then read only after it's been entered the first time. Ooh, that's a complicated one. I think that's just a default mode. So,
Yeah.
but this understanding, I think also of say, how can you set up a framework that is also implementable from a
Mm-hmm.
system process perspective, in order to get reports that are not just a load of BS, because you haven't, taken it along during the implementation as a key requirement, and managed actually to do it on a level that is feasible for them to deal with on a day-to-day business. So highly
Yeah.
automated capturing of data, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something I think
Okay.
is
Okay.
and then I think the other aspect that we're digging into then as well is, so what are the means of somebody doing this in which phase? So
Mm-hmm.
typically a lot of initiatives around, like the design and the documentation, but to really say, I want to really operatively say benchmark. And there we're talking also about these intelligence initiatives that are
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
and running.
Yeah.
It's like, all of a sudden there's a mandate to not just help us document our process better and to generally think about a better world, but to really say, I'm going to provide a report for the management to show just how well you're performing or not.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, absolutely.
there's a lot of kerfuffle there. And ultimately, and that reflects also this person, the way we're talking about BPM organizations, would be very strong associated to a process owner. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And so let's take this
I
back
would
as
agree with
well.
that.
That aspect means that then also the process owner, and you would most probably say, yes, but that's clear and sure. The process owner should be the one actually giving the directives for what explicit KPIs are the ones that
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
are aiming for. What level do we expect? What are the drill downs we need, etc. So really defining the key requirements around reports and dashboards, and having the KPI or the the process in the
Whatever
performance
we're gonna call them.
expert
Yeah.
actually help him, guide him, advise him on how to set this up in a bigger level, and manage also the expectations with other process owners, because there are a lot of overlapping. Managing the alignment with finance controlling view on the
Oh
number,
yeah. Yeah.
like the value flows rather than just the material flows and the informational flows from a time perspective, and getting this all together. So super, super exciting. But again, a lot
Yeah.
of it revolves around the process owner, his mandate to actually dig into that level. And
Yeah.
that's super important also for this person to be able to move, breathe, and actually enfold some effect on
Yeah.
the organization.
That's interesting. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, it does come down in many cases, and we talked about this on AI topics and on process mining topics. The better the data that you can put in, the better the report that comes out. So for an analyst, it's really key to make sure that the owner understands we need good data, we need accurate data. Um, but that's a different rabbit hole that I don't want to go down today. We can do another episode on that, Russell, on
Hmm.
data quality. What I do want to do is we also, of course, have the character traits and the required experience for these type of roles, right? So let me give you the rundown on the character
Mm.
traits that we think are relevant or very critical for, let's say, a process intelligence analyst or a performance and KPI analyst, whatever you want to call it. So the character traits that are mentioned here are data storytelling ability and business acumen. So raw metrics mean nothing without the narrative that connects them to business outcomes and decisions,
Wow.
it's so eloquently put, isn't it?
Wow. Yeah, that's AI for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that
Brilliant.
also, but
Is it a good prompt, right?
yeah, actually, but you saying that narrating data and reports, yeah, I had this one tool a long time ago. I think it was really before the key hype on AI. It allowed you to create, like, on an interactive level. It helped you create reports, and it would always have it would automatically create a website where it would actually narrate the results of what you want to analyze. Then it would include the table with the results and a pie chart. And then it would also half automated already generate some generic sentences
Yeah.
on the output. And
Interesting.
there was also a site that did this for your web analytics. Yeah, so all your SEO data and stuff like that. They would plug into your website, and it would give you a written report with some tables on the performance of your website. And that's
That's
years back.
interesting.
That came out before ChatGPT was like officially on the market. We're talking about 5-6 years back. And I really loved that. And then they didn't really take up so much, because you could have this once you had the key narrative there and the key sentences there. It just updated the data and filled in the blanks into things and just changed a couple
Yeah.
of words. Now, in day and ages of AI, I would say that's exactly where you have to go. So, and that's the way you have to think. You need to tell a
Hmm.
story about the data. You need to interpret it in the
Yeah.
context of your business. Now, coming down to this poor person, again, the unicorn. We have they have hundreds of unicorns that are
Yeah. The
defined by
five-legged sheep. Yeah.
exactly. And so you're thinking, wow, now that's quite a feat, isn't it? So he has to set up the KPI framework.
Yeah.
Then he has to help design process in depth to also be able to fulfill and provide good data to then feed reports, which is then also going down to the detailed design level of that. Then being able to also most probably help the reporting team build up reports and dashboards and help give them so much context that they can give a good narrative on this as well. Wow. That's a lot. That's a lot to digest there for these
But
people.
it's not just that. It's in my view, there might be some contradictions in there, and contradictions in the sense that at the moment that you're really good with data and setting up KPI frameworks and maintaining dashboards, you're typically on one end of the spectrum. And if you're really good at storytelling and business acumen, you might be on a different part of that spectrum. I don't know many people where they're actually combined into a single person.
But you know that unicorns do like a rainbow poo with a lot of
Oh
colors.
yeah. Of course, it's a rainbow. I forgot.
So when we're talking about when we're talking about unicorns, we are talking about exactly that
sparkling.
exactly
of
a sparkling. No, but
yeah.
so and I'm totally with you. Where and it just goes to show that on the one hand, the roles we've been discussing, a lot of the time they fall on one person. Where you go, oh wow, that's a lot for him as one person to do. On the other hand, some of the roles that we've been describing are so much in depth that you're saying that's hardly possible to manage that in full with one person. So and again, it takes me back to this quiz. So we're talking about if there's so many episodes about all these roles during the project of implementing BPM, during the runtime, and then you think if somebody were to listen to us and to start writing down, it says, okay, guys, I've been tracking all your episodes. I've come to the conclusion, or AI has helped me, and he says to implement and run BPM, you need 25 people. Or 50 people or something like that. And just think about the domains and thinking about your hybrid organization rolling out. Is it, so you need something like 100 people, and they're all experts and they're all whatever. And you said, well, yes, but reality is then, COC, 3 people, get the job, or they get some consultants in for, half a budget and make it work. So I think it's good because it does show the necessity. If you take it seriously, you need to embed it in the organization. We're talking capabilities. They have to become part of everybody's job.
But Russell, this makes me think, and I want to do a shout out to all the BPM professionals that we have right now. You're saying, based on what we've been discussing in the last 7, 8 parts of this mini series on roles, is you need 25, 50, 100 people to do it based on the requirements that we lay down, right? In practice, it's typically 3, 4, 5 people. So these people must be absolutely badass, super unicorns, because it's like 5 of them doing the work that otherwise normal people would say 25 people need to do. So in this episode, we do a massive shout out to all the people doing BPM, CUEs, and rollouts. You're super badass unicorns. Congratulations. I need to say that. It needs to get off my chest. You rock. Period.
That's true. That's absolutely true.
There you go. You got the blessing of the BPM 360 podcast. Not that you need it, but you have it. Keep spreading the word and the gospel and whatever.
We see you. We see you.
We see. We also like to see you in the comments and the likes, by the way. But we see you.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
No, but I mean, I'll have one more for you, Russell, because we have the required experience to cover as well. So strong background in data analytics and business intelligence. And then it says Power BI, Tableau, or similar. I think Power BI, they're still there. Combined with enough business knowledge to design KPIs that actually reflects process health rather than just what's easy to measure. And it's that last part that I like to discover with you a little bit. Let's unpack it. Because more often than not, when I look at dashboards, it simply is what's available. But it doesn't give me a good narrative. It doesn't tell a good story on the actual process health. Because health often is more important than performance, right? I mean, I'll give you the best example. We all know the fastest man on the planet used to be Usain Bolt, right? He was the pinnacle of performance. He can hardly walk upstairs right now. So I'm not saying he's in the course of that process. He is not the best example of health in the long run. And if you want to execute a process in the long run, health becomes really important. There you go.
So health, from a Darwinistic perspective, you could also talk about resilience. And you know,
of course,
we have this like resilience in supply chain, and
yes.
how do you measure that? That's really heavy, because you need it's like you can only assess it after catastrophe is hit, and you know that it was there or not. So, but then that's one aspect of saying health is actually only really when it's really challenged that you could see. Now, there's two things here. One of them is, of course, over time. So a lot of what I see is, especially around process performance indicators, process mining is very helpful because it helps really do a time analysis. So you really have the possibility of going back and saying, it really dissecting along the timeline how certain process performance indicators or KPIs were. Not that it's just process mining that offers that, but that's one aspect that I do like to see how things work out seasonally across the year, how they develop over years if you have the data and access. And I think that's one of the things where every KPI is worth nothing if you don't have a trend. And that's what I see, that sometimes they look too much just on the static values of now, rather than focusing much more on the deltas.
Yeah.
I was studying technical chemistry a long time ago. Of course, if you want to measure certain systems, you need to give impulses into the systems to see how the system reacts. Well, which actually is the cause of most measurements. And then you can put in some stochastic noise, and then you see how the noise comes back, and you can then, by this, actually describe actually the whole function of how a black box system works. Yeah? Now, I think in processes, that's also, I think for the sense of health and resilience, you would have to think of similar methods of actually being able to disrupt the system on purpose and see how the system reacts. Now, from my knowledge, you do that in manufacturing and processing and everything like that, but I don't think that's something that is really landed with process management yet. So I think there's still a lot of the way the performance, resilience, and health of a system is measured is still on a quite a static benchmark level.
And there's another dimension to it, because I agree with that, and it's an interesting angle. What I learned in my years in the chemical manufacturing industry, so it seems to come down to chemistry, Russell, today. But so in my days, the term KPI typically is measured either in a percentage or in money, and that's not always the way a process is measured. And so what we did in one of those projects is we basically say we need to measure things in a process. We'll call them PPIs, a process performance indicator, because we can relate it and we can measure it directly from the process data. And then we'll set up a sort of a tree or a breakdown that says, how do my PPIs roll up into KPIs? And it's not a scientific way of connecting them. It's a mental gymnastics that you do. And I'll give you a very simple example. If you run a manufacturing company, and in this case, and you have a quality check at the end of every production run, and you need to take the usage decision, the UD. So is this going into unrestricted stock, or is it going into quality inspection, or whatever you're going to do? And if your system is configured, or we call our SAP, that quality inspection, that usage decision takes 3 days, and in reality it takes 10 days, that means that your product ends up in unrestricted stock 7 days late on average. And that means that if you are delivering just in time to your customers, you're probably going to be delivering late. So you might deliver on time, but you're not going to, sorry, you might deliver in full, but not on time.
Yeah.
So the PPI of your adherence to your own quality inspection lead time has a direct effect on your customer satisfaction through the OTIF.
Totally. I mean, and
if you, at the moment that you build up that PPI structure and connect it mentally into the KPIs, the discussion you're going to have with your leadership, they are going to understand that the health of a process has a much bigger impact on their KPIs than they tend to think normally.
That's a super point. And I think actually this, and now maybe we're down more to this intelligence, process intelligence view on it, understanding causal like dependencies between the processes and then the aggregated outcomes that you see along the chain, where and I think and this is something where I'm not quite sure if we're saying, okay, you have to be really good with data, but you also have to have a business context to really have an impact. And there's one aspect we didn't talk about, the measures. Let's get there next. But just think about, you need somebody who really can actually go into helping analyze the processes to be able to understand the root cause and the effect of what is happening in the processing on the larger scale of the end-to-end. Because what you talk about on time and full is like the whole supply chain. And then you're drilling down to something like the credit limit check or the quality check of the product. And this is why I think this is, from the effects here, being able to understand how they aggregate up or they impact the whole chain. That's really relevant for designing these PPIs, because you have to say, what is really relevant here? Is it the first time? Is it like the 100% security, or is it the balancing between the credit limit check and the time you use to check it, double check it, double check it, just to make sure that you're definitely not going to have any faulty payments? Or is there a pragmatic way there? And this dialogue and this balancing of the objectives and process performance indicators that aggregate up to somehow like a KPI, and how this construct works along the process. These insights are really, really important. They're actually the core of being able to enter any excellence initiative. And something I didn't really reflect on earlier, but of course, Lean Six Sigma initiatives, they go down exactly when they do the data-driven approach. They go down exactly that path. Yeah.
Yes.
So but there again, sometimes you think, but what happens is they go down the rabbit hole, and then they look at their data distribution, and they want to get it from the pure talk. They want to have it like that, narrow, and then it's good. Is it? Yes,
not always.
But if your objective that you're setting down and you're trying to narrow everyone down to be as fast as possible, and it is reproducible, but the target is wrong because it has not the optimal effect of the overarching aggregated level of the chain, then you're missing the point. So, so it's if you do not have an end-to-end process owner, and I say end-to-end process owner, who can give guidance on what each and every element in the chain needs to strive for in order for the KPI to work out well, they're going to optimize in the one direction. You're going to have two maximum, and they're going to land on they can land on the left-hand side. So everybody's doing the same thing, really reproducible, but they're doing the wrong thing, or not quite the right thing, because they've been misadjusted. So bringing that aspect in, if a data and KPI process intelligence analyst, however you want to call him, brings, and I would say you would have to pinpoint that down as intelligence, because if he takes the means of process intelligence tools to help prove a point about variance, but also overarching like hit or miss on certain things, bringing these data-driven insights into the discussion, design around processes, then the value for the organization is really big. Yeah. Yes. Does he have to know data? Yes. Does he more though have to know how these root cause things work together and understand in dialogue with the process owner, process experts, how they can figure out actually where to set the each and every kind of indicator to actually work into one aligned KPI and streamline the processes around that. That's
Yeah.
a big task, but that's what you want to aim for. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Not much to add to that, Russell. That's brilliant. I think
Oh.
what we should do is we described like basically now 10 BPM unicorns, right? So we can start a unicorn farm called the Happy Business Process Management Farm. Maybe we can talk to a Chinese manufacturing company. We can do some merchandise. We
Let's
collect
do
them
some
all.
the BPM unicorns. We have them like
Yeah,
as like
yeah.
little
And if you're good at it, you're going to get a
giveaways.
badge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. We need to think about that. But anyway, I mean, let's keep it at that for this one, and that means that we've come to the end of the mini series, which was very much fun to do. But I didn't expect it to go that long, to be honest.
Mm,
And
me
you
neither.
remember when we did the first one, we thought we were going to do like 2 or 3 roles in one session,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then we
yeah.
ended up with some roles spanning multiple sessions actually. So that was a lot of fun. So as of next week, Russell, I think we're going to go back to either guests or regular topics. I got a couple of ones in my head, and you do probably too. Until that time, I think it was a lot of fun, and we got some good feedback on the roles. Russell, I think you
Yes,
noticed that as
and we
well.
may have some. I did say we do want to again a shout out to the listeners. If we can have some, practitioners that have been seen themselves stressed in the one or the other role, or been given all five at once, and
Yes,
have a discussion on maybe reflecting a bit on what we've been talking on, and they have some active feedback. Join our let's say our get together here, and then discuss what their impression is on these, like their
yes,
roles, their interpretation of roles, the way they implemented these roles. That's the discussion we want to actually have,
yes.
to further deepen, let's say, also the exchange on how to manifest BPM over the roles in an organization.
That's a great final remark, Russell, and I can only agree to that. So if you have interest in talking to us on that while we record, because that's basically what a podcast is, and you want to become famous on the internet, then reach out to us. Questions at bpm360podcast.com. As usual, it's always in the show notes. And then I'll talk to the listeners and say, thank you very much for joining. See you next week. Russell, see you
Take
next
care.
time.
Bye bye.
All right. Cheers. Bye.